Welcome to the second edition of the Ethics in Technology series, where we try to have some very interesting experts and other guests, professors from both within or outside of TU Delft, to talk about ethics in technology for everyday topics instead of only the standard courses you follow within your study program, probably. Today you see me because unfortunately one guest had to cancel. So I will moderate the session tonight, and I will have a very nice discussion, hopefully, on everything around artificial intelligence with Dr. and Assistant Professor Luciano. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome to the second edition.
Yeah.
Are you excited?
Yeah, excited to be here.
Very
Thank
good.
you for inviting me.
And you're Assistant Professor here at TU Delft?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
in what department?
I'm an assistant professor at the Intelligence Department, is specifically on the Interactive Intelligence group here at the EMCS, so Mathematics and Computer Science. And yeah, so should I introduce a little bit more about myself?
Yeah,
should
sure.
Okay,
yeah.
So yeah. I have a bachelor in mechatronics engineer.
Yeah.
So, and then after that I went to have a master and a PhD in electrical engineering, but always with this focus on applications of AI systems and AI techniques to robotics, and also AI techniques to power systems in general, but always looking into a little bit more about how does this interplay with people? How are people using the systems, and what is the human behavior? And then when I came here to TU Delft, I was part of this AI Tech initiative on meaningful human control. So during my talk, I'll explain a little bit more about what this meaningful human control means. So spoiler alert, it's not about like controlling humans or anything like this.
Because people are always very scared when you talk about AI. They think it's like a very mighty, strong power and uncontrollable force that will do everything, learn everything, and take over the human beings.
Yeah, exactly. So, and this kind of concerns, kind of narratives, they really, they become an issue because sometimes we don't really look into the problems that are happening today. So it's not about science fiction. It's not about things that will happen like in 100 years from now or something like this. It's about issues that are happening right now and how we're going to deal with them.
About actually solving the problems from these days.
Yeah, and these
by using artificial intelligence.
Yeah, exactly. And this, what I really like about this initiative also on meaningful human control is about the whole idea is how to keep AI, any kind of autonomous systems, under control. So you see that's a little bit, it's a weird question because you see autonomous systems under control, but if they are autonomous, how do you control them?
Yeah, it's kind of opposing terms to use.
Things, but there is, again, I'll talk a little bit more in the follow-up to this, but it's really, it's really a little bit the idea how we can make the machines understand humans and work together. So it's combining. Instead of like thinking about machines that are smarter, more intelligent than people are going to replace and take our place and everything, but it's about working together. It's the symbiosis. And what's nice about this AI Tech initiative was really nice because it's also, you have philosophers, you have designers, you have computer science, you have engineers, everyone working together towards the same goal.
Good.
So and then I'm very happy to be here.
Before we spoil everything, and let us show what you can tell us about AI.
Okay, so let's do this. Thank you.
Good luck.
Good. So, I'll talk a little bit about responsible and ethical AI. So before we move so much in depth, let's focus on the last part, AI, artificial intelligence. So what is artificial intelligence? So there are so many different definitions. This is not something new. It's something that they started working like decades ago in the 1950s. There was a lot of talk here. And so let's look into some specific definitions. As any academic, I like to have some definitions. So let's start with them. So what is artificial intelligence? One thing is the study of the computations that make it possible to perceive, reason, and act. Okay, that's one possible way. So we can kind of classify these and some other definitions as systems that think rationally. Or you can have a field of study that seeks to explain and emulate intelligent behavior in terms of computational process. Others, the automation of activities that we associate with human thinking. So systems that think like humans do. So if you are, so this is the kind of thinking about intelligence as a human product. And systems that act like humans, the art of creating machines that perform functions that require intelligence when performed by people. You can see there's a lot of things. They are not exactly, they have different nuances. But I would like to that you get a little bit of the approach here. Let's take a little bit of a broader approach of AI in this talk as a set of any kind of algorithms, tools, and approaches that do things that would require intelligence if done by humans. Okay, so something that if you would just do anything autonomously, if you would do yourself, then you would require some intelligence. So AI is not magic. It's not about, as Pepin was very well saying before, it's not about like any kind of magic that knows everything, has all the answers. It's definitely not about this. And as I said, all this kind of AI algorithms have been around for many, many years. But today, usually when people are talking about artificial intelligence, we are talking a bit sometimes about machine learning and deep learning, okay? So, what is this machine learning and deep learning? They take this computational capacity that we have more and more of processing a lot of data, having a lot of data, and they try to process and make some decisions based on this. So let us look into some ideas, some examples, just to set the stage. Then we're going to go to the responsible and ethical aspects of AI, which that's what I wanted to focus on today, talk to you. Okay, so there's a lot of different things when we talk about AI, about machine learning. So let's just cover some examples. Neural networks are some kind of algorithms. They try to mimic some structures of the human brains, and they try to make some classification or some decisions. For example, here you have like two pictures that's going to define, is this a cat or is this a dog? Okay. Reinforcement learning algorithms, they work in a little bit of a different way. So they try to, by understanding what is the reward, what is the objective, I think they try to find what is the best manner to achieve this. And a very relevant example that we saw a few years ago was about from Google DeepMind, AlphaZero, some other algorithms that could beat the world championship on Go. We have also some natural language processing algorithms. Some, of course, some use AI, some not, but we have a lot that use this kind of AI or deep learning techniques. For example, GPT-3, which they can process a lot of text and give some inputs on this. So some opinions on this. Evolutionary programming tries to make a little bit this idea from using theories from evolution to do. Symbolic AI is more about logic combination, so you try to make all this kind of logical inferences. So this is all not about machine learning anymore, but it's also about AI, okay? So, or even some very simple heuristics. If this, then do this. If that, then you do that. That also could be considered heuristics and could be considered some, in a broader sense, AI. And many other techniques and approaches, okay? So, what is the fuss about AI today? One thing is more data. We have a lot more data being captured, being processed every time, which is cheaper to store, more computational power, all in kinds of all this kind of supercomputers, cluster, but also in terms of specific AI chips. So what's called the tensor processing units, some other things. Cloud computing also, and more algorithms being developed. Every year we see like all these conferences that have so many more efficient algorithms that are more and more precise. So what do we do with all this? AI, so there's applications, really nice applications in so many different domains. Healthcare, mobility, we see automated vehicles. It's not only about completely autonomous vehicles, but also any kind of let's say, lane keeping assistant, they can also use AI algorithms for retail, for agriculture, for banking. Think about fraud detections, think about like processing any kinds of documents. So they can bring a lot of nice things also. There's a lot of benefits. That's why we talk about AI. It's not because AI is bad, all bad and all evil. No, it's because we need to look into these societal, ethical aspects in order to get the benefits that they can also bring to us. So what I want to say is AI is happening today, as Pepijn very well mentioned before. It's not about the super intelligent AI that knows everything. And it's often invisible and embedded in our day-to-day tools. So if you just get your smartphone, now you're watching this through some streaming, some video platforms, there's a lot of recommendations, there's a lot of image processing, there's a lot of things going on that we don't even notice. So if you really think about how much AI is in your daily life, how long can you stay without getting in touch with some kind of AI today, without going and make search something on the internet, without listening to some music, without having your image processed somewhere. So it's something to think about. How many minutes, how many seconds can we stay in your daily connected lives without any connection at all with AI? Okay, so one thing it's also problematic in my vision is this hype about this potential benefits. So AI is really good, can do everything for us, can solve all our problems. So if we look only at the benefits, we don't analyze what are the impacts, how is it embedded in our social process and social practices today, we can start to over-rely on these algorithms to do everything. So you start, let's say, you can stop thinking for yourself and just rely on whatever they give you. So one thing I like this thing, so it's not related to AI, but say, with great power comes great responsibility. You probably maybe you read this in a cartoon back in the days. But what I want to say is AI can bring a lot of benefits and has a lot of potential. But there's also, we must have a lot of responsibility when developing this because of their potential, okay? So what it's not about today, as I mentioned, is not about super intelligence, it's not about AI turning evil, it's not about AI turning conscious. I'm not going to talk about these things. There are some very interesting discussions, the speculations about this, which is very interesting. But this is not what I want to talk to you about, okay? Why? Because I do think that this hype about these potential dangers, they can lead to two problems. One is panic and overreaction. You say like, let's stay away from the AI. I don't want this, that's too dangerous. I don't want to have anything to do with computers. Or just say, there's nothing we can do, so let's just forget about it. So these two things are not nice. So what I want to talk to you is what is called narrow AI. It's AI that's used for a specific task, to recommend you something, to help you to analyze some image, to help you like drive a vehicle, and for a specific purpose, okay? And algorithms making more and more impact in the world, but misaligned with human values and norms. So they are out there, they are making this impact in the world, but are they really doing what we would want them to do? And I also want to make clear that responsible and ethical AI is a social technical challenge. It's not only about getting more data, getting better algorithms, it's also about understanding people. Who is there and what are they doing? What is this practice as I mean? Okay, so let's get started with some examples here that you know a little bit more what I'm talking about. So let's think about these three simple examples, okay? Autonomous vehicles, social media, and job suitability prediction. There are some things that AI is being used already today in this kind of applications. Autonomous vehicles, of course, there is. Let's call it vehicles with some autonomous capabilities. Let's say if we look at the criterion for optimization that the systems want to achieve, let's say first one you can have like more efficient, maybe more safe transportation. Social media, you want to provide relevant content for someone, which seems like a very nice thing. You want to provide some things. You don't want to make people lose time. You don't want people get what they want. And job suitability prediction, avoid hiring unsuitable people that for the task you want, and also maybe help you find the best potential employees for your company. That sounds kind of interesting. And let's say, what are the features? What are the kinds of, let's say, data that we can look into to make these decisions? Let's say, autonomous vehicles, we can look at visual sensors, road maps, weather conditions. For social media, we can look vocabulary, social interactions, web presence, maybe some other platforms. And for job suitability prediction, there are quite some companies and some also approaches that are looking into facial emotion to see when during interview, try to scan your face, try to see how it is, what is the tone of your voice, what is the tone of my voice right now, what is the vocabulary I use. And let's say, if things go okay, you could have like less accidents. For social media, you have more time spent on the social media, people get the information they want. And job suitability prediction, have high volume selection. But when we do this, and you have some algorithms optimizing only for the specific criterion that were coded for a specific purpose, what we might get out of this is autonomous vehicles, you have no accountability at all in case of accidents. So something happens, and who was responsible? Because you need to supervise the car, but the car was doing, and then social media, you might get political polarization as an emergent pattern of this. Job suitability prediction, you might get reduced self-representation. So you are not really allowed to speak up to, I think I am creative, and try to argue because of this, because of the words you use at a specific point in time, they were all there was for you to do this kind of selection, to decide if you get the position or not. Okay? So, my stance here is that moral alignment is missing in these kind of applications. And the problem is that they do decisions about one's fate in a non-forgiving way. What do I mean with this? Some are decisions that you cannot easily take back. You can say, like, if you make an accident with an autonomous vehicle, people may die. If you have like social media despolarization, it's very hard to get back from this once you get to the thing. Job suitability predictions, that's the same. If you don't get the job, it's also hard. You can get in a spiral and don't get jobs, and it can really ruin your life. Think about also deciding about signing mortgages and all these kind of things as well. So is this morally, is this legally acceptable? And what I wanted to say is that limitless innovation without due consideration seems very irresponsible. Okay? So, why am I saying this? Is because it's not about just testing the algorithms in a lab, in a very controlled environment. It's about quickly developing and deploying them, testing with real people in the real world. That's a little bit what the problem is all about. So about this mantra, we have like move fast, break things, move agile, and do this, try it out, try again. But what if someone dies in between? What happens with all this kind of issues? So what I want to say is that for this current modern AI systems, is not an error 404 page not found. It is about an accident, is about someone that cannot progress in their own lives. Okay? So, let me give you some more concrete examples on the word, because you can say like, oh, it's really not there, right? Is it really a problem? So, we have here this system that was called the Compass system. It was to predict if some people that were arrested, they would commit crimes again. And they were, because of how the data was trained and how the algorithms were developed, it was very much biased toward black people. So there were a lot of more high-risk people for people like Bernard Parker here. So they would say, okay, you have a great chance to commit a crime. That might not be the case. And that was proven also not necessarily the case. There was a lot of bias embedded here. And we have, for example, here, Amazon also have some AI recruiting tool that favored a lot of men on the recruiting process because of their bias in the data. They were not so much careful in considering all these possibilities. If you talk about image recognition, try to tag some things. Men, they would tag like business, speaker, business person, woman. They would say like smile, black hair, hairstyle, this kind of thing. So this is really two people from the American Congress. So that's a lot of other cases, and there's a lot of other things. So there's a lot of this chatbot who was tweeting a lot of racist and misogynic comments. And then also we have fatal accidents and these responsibility gaps that I mentioned before, that who is really to blame? So it's a big question. So how do we look into this? So AI can do a lot. I'm not arguing this, okay? So that's for sure. We can do a lot and can do a lot of good stuff. But should it? In which domain? Who gets to decide this? Are you being impacted? Did you have a voice? Could you choose for this? Which values are to be considered? Whose values? How to deal with any kind of dilemmas? Think about a dilemma between different values. Sometimes there is just not easy to say this is the right choice, this is the right option. When we look into ethics, when we look into morality in a broader sense, yeah, it's not easy decisions. So to look a little bit at this, so all this academic and a lot of organizations and governments, they are more and more thinking about this, and they try to come up with some ethical principles that AI systems should follow. So this is a very nice, interesting article that was published on Nature Machine Intelligence, when they identified here some principles, a convergence around these principles: transparency, justice, fairness, non-maleficence, responsibility, and privacy. They are also, so we can see there's some other principles here by the European Commission, by the Institute of Electrical and Electronic and Electrotechnical Engineers, also from companies, here for Google. I put these three here as some examples of ethical principles. But as I introduced myself earlier, I'm an engineer, and I work also in the domain of computer science now, and I want to say, okay, that really speaks to me. What do I do? How do I approach this? So there is some ideas on how to take the responsibilities and how to develop. So that's the last thing I want to talk to you about. So this is the final part of my talk about how to take responsibility. So first thing, we think about what is this ethical principles in context. What does it matter for these applications? And there's a lot of technical methods and non-technical methods in which to do this, but we need to see, was that enough? Assess, go back. There's always a continuous cycle to do this. So let me put a little bit more in some more details here. How to do this is technical, non-technical methods. We have what in this book here, some other papers, Dignu mentions about ethics for design, ethics in design, and ethics by design. So what do I mean with this? Let's start with the first one. Ethics for design. We're talking about codes of conduct of professional associations, for example. We are talking about regulatory requirements. This is a very important thing that Jeroen van Hoven on the previous, she mentioned a lot, and I think Benan also on the next session is also going to talk with you a lot about this new regulation on a European approach for artificial intelligence, which is really, really interesting. There's a lot of things to be considered, so I will not focus on this today. And there's also a lot of standards and certification process. Though that's ethics for design. It's about teaching ethics in the educational curricula. So that's very important that this is embedded in the educational process. So that's all, I always in my lectures, I want to bring these topics always forward. And to give this discussion, that becomes a practice. It's not about responsible AI. Really, my vision is that we're going to be talking about AI development. And AI development would mean responsible AI development. We talk about, in some other domains, we think about the medical domain. That's kind of a lot more, though a lot of discussions already happen, there's a lot more embedded ethics in these medical discussions. Let's bring this also to AI development. So ethics in design means to have these processes on designing new systems that can be ethical. So this connects also to some things that I'm sure that Jeroen mentioned to you on the previous lecture, was about designing for values, using participatory processes, and looking into this. So this process that can help you get through the steps and understand what are the impacts, who are the stakeholders, what are the values relevant here, and really embed this in the process. So I'll talk to you a little bit more about ethics by design, which it's a little bit more about the computational and engineering aspects of this. So it means representation of moral values and social norms in algorithms, in systems, in not only in systems, but in social technical systems, right? So is also about thinking about reasoning capabilities, ethical reasoning capabilities for algorithms, but not only, it's also about thinking about constraints, where should it operate, where should it not operate. It's about the interaction patterns. Is not only about taking the AI as just like this all-knowing thing, and the human, you stay on the side, you don't know anything. No, it's about having humans embedded in the process and people that can understand what is going on. But is it feasible? Is it desirable? The decision to embed this kind of ethical reasoning capabilities, values, and norms is an ethical decision per se. Do we want that? So that's one of the things we need to consider and think about. So there is a lot of very interesting topics to discuss and to talk to you about here, but I want to focus on 3 specific topics on ethics by design. So one is transparency and explainability, non-discrimination and fairness, and the last one about responsibility. Okay? So let's go. Transparency with respect to data, system, and business models. So what does it mean? So data sets and processes, they should be documented. We should know what is going on, why the system was developed in a given manner. And AI systems should always be transparent to their capabilities. And then also, if you have let's think about a chatbot that's talking to you, they should not try to trick you that it's a human using this. It should be also very transparent in this aspect. And this explainability should also talk to you why a given decision was made, what was the conditions, and give you the opportunity also to ask questions and to interact, say, I don't agree with you. So what I want to say is, computer says no, it's not enough. It's not enough just to say, no, that's not the case, you're not going to get this job, and anything. So this is not enough. We need some system that can be more explainable. And that's actually quite hard when you think about this new, 10 years or something like this, machine learning, deep learning algorithms, because it's so much data, so much complex that you don't have a clear interpretability in many cases. So that's something we should definitely strive for in order to take responsibility for this. And these explanations should always consider, who am I explaining to? Am I explaining to a policymaker, and I'm explaining to a lay user, and I'm explaining to a kid, and I'm explaining to a technical developer? So that must be considered, because saying that the layer 255 of the things had a weight of, I don't know how much, like 0.8, and that's why you got the things, or that's really not enough. Okay, so it's about understanding who it is and providing some meaningful explanations. Okay, if we do this, we can have an embedment of these values and norms that I explained to you, they can become a lot more transparent for the user. So why did you do this? Because I was caring about environmental concerns, which are very important for me. That's why I gave you the suggestion. Or because I care about your autonomy. So these kind of things can be some kind of try to build some interaction, so explainability can also increase the transparency. That's what I want to say. Non-discrimination fairness, that's also a very hard topic for AI. I'm talking about a lot of things, I know, but later on the discussion, I will give you all the floor also to ask specific questions. I know maybe it's a bit fast right now here. Just want to make sure we cover all these basic ideas, and then we can dive a little bit more in depth in the discussions. Okay, so think about here, we have a lot of data, which can have a lot of historical bias, representation bias. So you might collect the data in a biased manner, or you can have a historical bias. There's a lot of things that can be. And with this kind of data, many times we want to make a given decision that's fair. So that's already very hard because of the left-hand side, because of this data that we have, if we want to make a data-driven, but also how do we define fairness? What is fairness? So it becomes a little bit it becomes very important for us to see that it's not really one definition, one solution. That's really something that us as engineers and as computer science, we want to say, okay, this is the definition. But no, there are so many definitions that would matter for different people, different definitions. Some definitions. One, fairness through unawareness. So our algorithm is fair so long as any protected attributes are not explicitly used. So if they want an algorithm to make decisions on biasing for gender, so you just don't include the gender. But no, you have other information that can also be used as a proxy for gender, or for where you live, or for any kind of other attributes. Other things, look into demographic parity. The likelihood of a positive outcome should be the same regardless of whether the person is in a protected group or is not in a protected group. Okay? So, does that make sense? That, yes, it seems okay, but there might be some distinctions there in this group that you don't have collecting your data that might actually make sense that there is a little bit of distinction on the decisions you make. So maybe you're not collecting, don't have the whole picture of this. Rauschen's fairness, there's a lot of other definitions of fairness. What I want to say here, let's not go so much in depth, let's say, there is no one-size-fits-all definition for fairness. It's about talking to people, engaging with stakeholders, and deciding what makes sense for your context, for your application, documenting the whole process, understanding what it is, and putting a lot of effort in thinking about this. So the last point, let's recap. So we talk a little bit about transparency and explainability. We talk a little bit about biases and fairness. And the last point I want to bring is, who is responsible for all these things? Is also responsible if something goes wrong, but also responsible to make sure that these things go right. Who is really responsible when things go wrong, or to make things go right? So when usually we think about, we have human decisions, we say we are humans, we have our moral agency. So if you are capable of making these moral decisions, and thus you can have some form of moral human responsibility. But when we put algorithms there, it makes it a lot harder. There is this here. So this is a topic that has been discussed for so many years. And Aristotle himself, he discusses these two conditions for responsibility. The Aristotelian condition, the control condition, and the knowledge condition. Let's say for a human to be responsible for something, so that's what we're talking, responsible AI, responsible ethical AI. You're responsible if you decided to take an action. So if you're doing something, you decided to do this. No one's holding a gun against your head, or no one's forcing you to do something. but also the knowledge condition. You know what is going on. You know what is going. So you don't have like, let's say a toddler drops a vase. It's not really responsibility of the toddler because it was really not aware that would drop and break the vase. So these are these two conditions, but they get a lot more complicated with algorithms. So having just a human in the loop is not sufficient condition. It's not enough just to be here. So I like this short video here from the Simpsons. Like, if Homer Simpson saying like, do something cool, pushing a button, and there is a drone dropping a bomb somewhere else, he was in the loop, but was he really aware, understanding what was going on? Not necessarily. You can extrapolate these things to some other less extreme domains. Think about automated vehicles, think about some even medical diagnosis, or some people that are looking into, do they have all the information, do they have the knowledge condition, do they have the control condition? So last thing I want to say to you is about keeping control, is about having the synergistic and transparent collaboration. It's not about developing an algorithm. The algorithm learns everything, does everything it gives you. Here is the right answer. So here's what you should do. No, it's about have this collaboration from early on. And if we look into this concept of meaningful human control, going back to what I talked to you on my introduction here about AI tech, we focus a lot on this concept of meaningful human control, is that humans, not computers, should remain control of and thus be morally responsible. So here we kind of make this association about the control and the responsibility. If I'm gonna take responsibility, I need to be able to control these systems. That, of course, is not only about controlling, about pushing the buttons. There is a lot more nuanced definition of control here. The control says that the system is tracking, so is responsive to my moral reasons. So that's the whole idea. So we can use the good, the learning, all the capabilities of the powerful AI systems and use them to help us adapt to our moral reasons, to our values, to our norms, and also trace back to a human. And also keep it, it's not about saying computer says no, about saying like we developers, we users, we governments, we take responsibility for the systems. Okay, so wrapping up, this is a social technical challenge. Better data, more algorithms is not always the answer. We need diversity. We need inclusion on the development, on the process, on design, on even identifying which are the requirements of a system. We need to understand who is being impacted by these systems and engage with them and talk in them. And it's a social technical challenge, and it's also about hybrid intelligence. It's about what humans can do well, what AI can do well, and making systems that augment human intelligence, not replace human intelligence. And this is definitely a multidisciplinary challenge. I would never say that it's not a one-person job. It's something that so many people need to engage and many people need to talk and discuss about it. So yeah, thanks for listening. So, bye-bye.
Let's go to discussion, as you said.
Amazing.
People need to talk about it way more than they do maybe now. Yeah. I would like to first of all, thanks for the very nice presentation. You touched a lot of different topics, very interesting, very broad.
Thank you.
And I want to talk about what you mentioned at the end. Mm-hmm. Like human control is a very, very large and important part, of course, in developing AI further and further and making it better to try to solve the problems we have using AI as a solution. But who is in control in the end? Like, where is the responsibility? Yeah. For who is that? Because it's very hard to define responsibility for one single person or organization sometimes, because there are so many collaborations or joint organizations or institutes, like the government works together with a company, or how would you define then the responsibility or address responsibility?
Yeah, this is a very good question, thanks. And that's I don't have there's not an easy answer, a single answer for this. Let me see. This is also not a challenge only related to AI. There's so many things. So there's on ethics, there's a lot of this what they call the problem of many hands.
Yeah.
So this problem of many hands, so you have a lot of people, a lot of
people.
organizations doing this, and who is really responsible? What is going on with all these things? So I would say that one thing very important here is understanding first what are the roles of each stakeholder at the table. So it's defining specifically what we in context. It's not about like one solution, like it's always the company, it's always the user, it's always it's about some, like we need to have these discussions with all stakeholders, and in which we can then define, okay, so what is the task you're doing? And then this being first defined, we need to, of course, engage with all stakeholders,
see what their values are, what they're willing to achieve.
Exactly. And the second step is also assuring that people are capable of acting towards their responsibility.
Yeah, okay, so they're meeting their demands from other people.
Exactly, because there is this concept also of responsibility gaps.
Yeah.
So responsibility gaps is like the situations where you cannot really properly attribute responsibility to anyone.
Okay. So
sometimes
like
there's just a gap there.
Okay.
Sometimes you cannot really easily attribute this.
Can you give an example of that?
Yeah. I can. For example, let's think about let's think about automated vehicles. Okay, so
Tesla car, for instance.
Yeah, let's think about it. So you say that you are responsible for supervising the vehicle.
Yeah.
You need to all times continue always supervise the vehicle. Let's take with the second degree of autonomy, and but something happens, and let's say you have just 1 second or half a second to act upon it, and let's say there is some attribution of responsibility from a few of the stakeholders, so the company can tell you were responsible. That was your role.
As a
user. Told you so. You signed the contract.
You signed the
contract. That's it. But we can argue that's no way you can monitor this kind of monitor a car, supervise a car for hours and hours, and not have your mind wandering off or something like this. You really cannot. It's not like something. Just I'm saying. There's a lot of research on human factors. A lot of
within assigning this responsibility.
That they can see. So basically, there's you should by a role that was attributed to you.
Yeah.
But there's no way you could do this.
Yeah, okay, so it's out of your hands, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where the responsibility gaps comes from.
But is that also with, for example, Mark Zuckerberg, like he of course, developed Facebook, but like, I don't know, in 2008 or something, he started with developing it, I don't know. But like, it became such a large thing with so much influence worldwide, like it got out of control, maybe. Without having assigned all the responsibilities, all the correct policy beforehand. So now you come into this problem where maybe the government should intervene, but they say like you are not doing it correctly because you let every user show what you define to use. Like it's hard for him as well. I can imagine. Yeah.
But there is, I think the issue, so when I talk about responsibility gaps, don't get me wrong, I'm not talking that there's no way to solve this. There is.
Yeah.
There is a lot of ways to have this proper attribution of responsibility. And how do you do this? By understanding what are the limitations of people and what are they capable to do this and everything. So if we think back to the automated vehicle, it's about understanding what is your reaction time? How much you need to be engaged, and consider this on this process. Because if you do this properly, you can minimize a lot the chance of having these responsibility gaps. If we go to the social media example that you mentioned, it's also the same thing. You should also think about what are all the possible consequences in the world.
Limitations as well.
And you can argue that maybe he didn't know this back when he started, but
of course.
there were so many interactions. No, but there's so many interactions, and Looper is not about like, here is the decision, and then it's out there in the world, and that's
it's done. Never
it's done.
And to look back at it.
I'm sorry, I didn't think about this back in the time. No,
it's not my problem anymore.
You should still think about it. Maybe there was
it's still your property.
And it's also it's not about getting 100% right, because you never know when you are you there. Do you really cover all the possible aspects?
You can never know everything. You can't know what would happen.
It's about like looking into all those possibilities and making a very good analysis, as I mentioned again, talking with all the stakeholders and also about documenting this. It's also about
future generations to have equal terms, to be transparent as well to everyone.
Exactly. Because if you make a thing, say maybe there was some impact here. You have on your social media and it cause some impact on some minorities. You're like, really, I did not see this, but I'm adjusting. So here is why I did this. I thought by doing this I would reduce this possibility, but I could not. So then you can learn which are mistakes and improve this.
That's good to
so
learn
that's
from
two
mistakes,
things.
of course.
It's about like continuously improving this, but also about understanding what is the context, how sensible is this application, because some things might be okay to go test and improve. Some things you should not.
Because on the other hand, the context will change as well during the years. Like maybe 10 years ago, we accepted way more than we do now, for instance. Maybe the world view changed a little bit on this as well. Because how would you adapt it to different cultures, for instance? Like I can also imagine that AI works based on a certain set of constraints. Those constraints are maybe related to the values that people regard as important. But those are then again connected to maybe the culture in a certain region. So is there also a sort of difference within cultures?
There's a lot of difference. Yes, there's a lot of difference. There's a lot of social studies that say like which values are considered more important in this culture, in that culture. And there is also about like different social norms. And we can see even here like 2 years ago, before the pandemic, there was like some social norms were here about like how close you can get to people, and then they completely changed. So that's something that's like these algorithms, they are here. How can they really interpret all these kind of things?
All these adaptations in society.
So I say like there is a lot of cultural difference across countries, across people with time. But also, something that I think is very important for us to see is that there is always some kind of behavior adaptation. It's always a game. This kind of you have an AI, a kind of system. You interact with the system, and then the system might adapt to you, and you might also adapt to the system. And
so it's a co-evolutionary process.
Exactly. It goes a lot like this. So there is also this this quote that also Jeroen always brings. I don't know if you did maybe on the previous session. It's how was that again? So it's basically we build we design our buildings. And then I missed the exact quote. So anyway,
was it something like
we design the buildings and then we learn and we adapt with them.
And the buildings also shape our new innovation or new insights in how we build the building.
So that was in the context of like really architecture and building. But the way you design a building is gonna impact on all the things you can do there, and that is things you can do are also gonna impact what you do.
Your behavior again.
Exactly. So,
I think so too.
There's some interesting works also from colleagues here from 3ME. They look into this in the context from automated vehicles, and they have some kind of share control. So what it means, like you're driving a car, and the car is also driving together with you. It's not about traded control. It's like either the car is driving and you're driving.
But it's
so the car is doing a little bit of the torque. You are there doing this also together, but if you think it's wrong, you can easily correct. So you're always engaged.
It's always you have the final decision to make.
Yeah, exactly. You always have the final decision, but different is also you always engage. You're always driving together. So they are really just helping you a little bit.
Like an e-bike, for instance. Like you pedal the bike, but it's supported by a small engine.
Yeah, exactly.
Engine
So,
in the,
exactly. But is then on the steering, on the braking level,
like a total system.
Exactly, on everything. So and they got some really interesting findings there from this on this study from Timo Melman, being some other people there, that they were giving assistance to some people, and then they start to speed up more. So you start to cut corners, you start to go faster and faster because you feel more safe with the car. So basically, the whole idea of the assistance is to make it more safe. But as you adapt your behavior and you start to speed up more, and then it's not. So it's also about understanding this. And they did some interesting studies. Said, okay, if you're gonna over the speed limit, I'm not gonna give you assistance anymore. So then you're on your own.
You're done.
You're done. I'm not gonna help you do this. So all this kind of smart system that can try to adapt, understanding these behavioral adaptations, they can help out with this kind of shaping and making sure that you are still on the direction you want to go.
Yeah. But I think it also happens more often in these types of technology that because you become so reliant on the technology that it supports you, it helps you, it does basically everything that you lose a sort of the feeling for your own responsibility. Yeah. So where would that go to? Like when you, for instance, a self-driving car, you're in the car causes an accident on the road. Is it then, as a driver, your responsibility, or is it the car's and thus the company's responsibility? How's it assigned then? If you drive a self-driving car, but you cause an accident on the road, is it then you as a driver that is responsible for causing the accident, or is it the car that is responsible for causing the accident? Yeah,
that's a very context specific. So that you have to look it up. Like, okay, what was was your task? What were your responsibilities? Were you doing this thing properly? Were you deliberately maybe like just watching a movie or not? Or were you capable of doing this? Because again, if they give like some warning, like half a second before you have to intervene, there's nothing you can do.
Too short, right?
There's really nothing you can do. So it's really about this interplay, about understanding what are human abilities and work and being aware of them, and then it goes both ways, right? It's about this appropriate calibration of trust. You know? So the AI should have an idea what you're capable of, but it's also very important that you have an idea what the AI is capable of.
Yes, so that's about the knowledge thing you talked about during the lecture.
Yeah, exactly. It's also about the knowledge condition and the control condition.
Yeah, because there was a question about the toddler that throws a glass at the ground, for instance. He or she is very young, so the knowledge condition is not fulfilled, right? But you eventually would probably punish or say something to the child. Is that fair then? Would you consider that fair or not? I mean, you have to try to change the behavior even though there's a knowledge condition which is unfulfilled.
I would leave this question to my colleagues philosophers. They can go a little bit more in depth.
A little bit deeper on this.
I would risk on saying this, but what I would say.
What would you do to your toddler?
But there is some interesting discussions on some more modern conceptions of attribution of responsibility, which they also look into guidance control as well. So let's think about in a little bit of a different scenario. Let's say that you went to a party. You were drinking a lot, and then you decided to get your car and drive home.
Yeah, very responsible.
And that's very responsible. But you can say, I was drunk. There was no knowledge condition here because I didn't know what I was doing because I was drunk. But what this guidance control also, they say this definition from Fisher and Avisa, some other philosophers, they say is like, but when you were sober, you made the decision to drink, knowing that you would have to drive back home. And thus you are...
So you caused the knowledge condition to not be fulfilled.
You are still responsible. So all these concepts of meaningful human control, they are connected a lot to this idea also, so to the idea of guidance control, that you can, so maybe think about the developers, their company, so they are not 100% sure on how these algorithms are going to act in the world.
Yeah,
because it's machine learning, they are going to learn from experience. That's the whole point about AI. That's the whole benefits and the risks.
Itself. Eventually, it will learn. It will grow.
But the moment you decided to release this setup, this system in the world without doing some proper consideration, you also need to take this responsibility.
Yeah. Eventually, you were the one that made the algorithm.
Yeah,
the initial
exactly.
algorithm.
So it goes a little bit this connection, this guidance.
Yeah,
so
okay. So it's intertwined and
exactly.
connected.
Even though you don't know specifically, don't have the knowledge for this, for all possible end users, you still decided to develop this in this size, in this shape, in this with this set of algorithms, and apply this in the world. So
okay. So eventually, when you choose to drink, it's your responsibility. So if you cause an accident, then it's also your responsibility. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You talked about the job suitability prediction system, and I read that actually in quite a lot of companies that use this system, that people are like 75% of the people are already declined in the first round. So they've never ever seen a human HR person or anyone from that. Do you think that's fair?
No.
It's quite a lot, right?
Yeah.
75% that's declined.
Yeah, of course. You need to consider that the pool from the people they're saying is a lot large. But I think there's quite some issues there. But one of the issues is also about scale. So you think about this set of algorithms using in scale, so many companies, so many things using this, so you might not even get a chance to get an interview at all.
Yeah.
And maybe your strengths is something different from the company.
Yeah, not something that you can read out of your resume.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Maybe it's not easier. Maybe you can, when you go to an interview, convince people and try to talk and explain them why you think you're suitable for this.
Everything like that. Yeah.
Exactly. But it's also in connection to this idea of self-representation, to say what you really are. So it's really about also thinking about what is the role, what is the task you want to do, and what do you need to know, what do you need to do for this task?
As an HR or as a job applicant?
I'm saying like also more from the company side. It's also about thinking about what is the role, what you want people to have, all the things.
For what do I want to select?
It's not only about saying like, okay, these are the people who perform, like the top 10 performers of my company on this role, and then you might be implicitly with all the best intentions, but you might implicitly be replicating some biases there.
Yeah.
Like when I briefly mentioned the Amazon case.
Oh yeah,
That was one of these applications, because it was okay. Let's do data-driven, so we don't want to have any human bias, any human prejudice on the systems. But
it's only data.
Yeah, and at the end it was everything there amplified.
Yeah, because you repeat.
Yeah, all the biases were there, and whereas you amplify. Yeah. But I don't. I like also to look this a little bit from this positive note, because if you these algorithms, they can also help you identify these biases and make you aware of these biases. And so that you, as a person, and through interviews, you can be aware and try to avoid these biases. Yeah. So maybe what really matters for the company is for this role are these features A, B, C, or how many we want, and that's what I'm going to look into it. I'm gonna explicitly try to avoid this bias, and then AI can help us identify this.
To show that you're always selecting for a certain characteristic.
But it's I think
it's complex.
And I think it's also a bit worrisome also for hiring and also for other things, because there's also this narrative to say like, but you have the final word. Don't worry about that.
Exactly. It's more of a sort of summary that the program makes for you, so you can easily go through all the applications.
Yeah. So basically, what many approaches, many companies claims that they say, it's up to you. You're going to make the final decision. You are the hiring manager from the HR. It's your call. I'm just going to give you a spreadsheet with a lot of people, with a lot of
data,
maybe a lot of unexplainable something that's not transparent, like give a black box with a lot of numbers, and you can look into this and do it. So you might do it once, do it twice, do it 3 times, but then
eventually
you see again, say, I think it's getting right. That's fine.
Yeah.
So then you stop looking and then start over trusting the system, and that's where all this problem happens.
Yeah, then the problem arises again.
The problem arises again. Yeah, exactly.
If we go on into working, do you think that because we now personally I would think that these kind of job application systems would be better if a sort of robot would be developed that eventually would be developed that eventually would be able to also notice sort of human characteristics during an interaction. So as a job applicant you would talk to a robot in real life, and that robot can also notice more than only the data you offer via the application form or something. But then we go into robots. Do you think that robots in the near future can take over a lot of human jobs? Because that's quite a fear of many people, I think. Mm-hmm. That like robots will compete with human labor.
Yeah, let me. The first part, what you mentioned. So let's say like there are many systems with all this kind of facial emotion analysis to do this.
Also with pictures.
Yeah, with pictures and everything, and they use this even for hiring, for job suitability prediction, those kind of things. So the thing is to understand what is the. It goes back to the same correlation, causation, right? Correlation is not causation.
It's not the same thing.
You can look into this, and some people say it and have a specific facial expression, and they could do the job well. But is this kind of facial expression that they're making them do the job well or not?
That they are correlated,
or is it maybe because you're looking into a specific group of people who have this kind of way of talking and way of thinking, and these kind of people were historically more hired for the system, and then you're just going to replicate the bias. So this is This is one point. But the second thing you're talking about, like the future of work, and then
basically
replacing
human labor by using robots.
Yeah. So I do believe that is more and more. So we're gonna have like a human, more AI and robots also interacting with us in our daily lives. That's gonna happen more and more. So I think that's the important thing is that how we want to do this and how we're going to do this. Yeah. Are we going to do this just by, replace everyone and
at once,
and that's it? So when I present these 3 examples about like automated driving and about things, I usually have another set of
examples.
Another set of examples, which and this and I talk about, for example, in a company about someone that can really listen to some machines and know what's wrong or what is right, and you can replace this by some AI system that can really predict this and know everything. So this consequences by applying the system. Say, okay, it makes sense because the guy the person, the woman, they has a lot of experience in understand this kind of little variations for the machine, understand what's going on. Yeah. And the AI could also do this, and I say, okay, that we want to optimize for the efficiency of the factory and everything. Yeah. But as a side effect, what I call the optimized, we get this decreased value of expertise. Yeah, so these people that really, they build a career, they know a lot about this, and suddenly they have nothing.
Hey, so that's you're with empty hands. Your expertise is unused.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So and that also asks us. So as a society, how do we want to do this? So do we want to just say, okay, this is not a valuable expertise, but maybe could these people also help in building the systems and giving their expertise back, or maybe we can think about what kind of. So we can get a lot of, if we think far ahead in the future, of course, that. A lot of things can change. It gets very much uncertain here. What is really the human essence? What do we really want? Do we want to strive for creativity and everything? But if we keep here a little bit more on the short term, one thing I would say, yes, we're going to have more AI, more robots interacting with us. But I do believe if we do this in a way that speaks to our values, to our norms, we can do in a way that, that is that bring benefits to society.
Eventually, yeah.
Exactly.
Because that's the ultimate goal, like to
yeah,
improve.
exactly. That's something that's really
life.
we see a lot here, as also the discussion here at TU Delft and all the courses about like making societal impact, to have like this thing that benefits society.
Yeah,
so,
you really have to improve something, because otherwise the innovation is kind of useless, I think.
Yeah.
I have one other question from the audience that's watching. Are there specific laws about AI responsibility?
Yeah, so I mean there are laws about. So I'm not a law specialist. First, let's put a disclaimer here. But I think that all the laws. So if you think about GDPR, the new regulation from the European Commission that was proposed on AI, they always touch about like who is responsible for doing what.
Yeah.
What are
Again,
the processes exactly, and they connect a lot to responsibility. I do believe that we need some more fine-grained definition of what we mean by responsibility. At least on the GDPR is not very much specific, some of the things. So how much can we take responsibility? So
what are the limits of humans in knowing and predicting certain events to happen and taking responsibility in that?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So I will have to.
But there are laws.
Yeah, there are.
But maybe too vague right now.
That should be more and more. And I think like one of the important thing. So there's also another experiment we ran some time ago that we look into this kind of what is the perception of how people think they are in control of automated vehicle, also in the case, and how much they think they were responsible. And there was also a lot of this thing that were like, even though people perceive that they were not in control, and there's nothing they could do about to be in control, but everyone agree with this, but everyone still said, but you're still responsible.
It's your responsibility.
It's your responsibility. So this fine grain, it's not there yet.
Yeah, okay. So like in the whole system of laws and stuff should be in place at a certain moment to allow new innovations to occur and to be really applied in a society, I think.
Yeah.
So maybe that should come first as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a lot very. What I can also say is it's very much context dependent, context specific.
Again.
So it's a bit hard also to say like
to make
for all cases things, because you can see you can do something and say that you're still following the letter of the law, but not exactly the spirit behind it. Yeah,
it wouldn't make sense to make everything very specific, but also you have to make a sort of boundary. So it's kind of a sort of middle ground you should find, I think. I think the time is almost up. So do you have a final remark on the development of AI? I just want to reiterate some of the points I made before. Is that first, it's about a social technical challenge. It's not only more about data, about algorithms, it's about like working together, understanding the practice. And the other thing is, it's a multidisciplinary challenge. So it's not only a multidisciplinary, but I will call also interdisciplinary challenge, because me as engineer, as a computer science, I need to engage and look into ethics, look into psychology, human behavior in order to do my things. Ethicists also are looking into computers and things. So also I think looking into this connection between disciplines is very very important. Yeah. So social technical challenge and multidisciplinary. So that's one of the points. And I would say, start from early on also. Don't wait until something goes wrong. Start from early on. Take responsibility.
Start on your education. Start thinking about these things. It's not about just a practical assignment you're developing. Is also think about what you're doing, what are implications from all the systems from early on.
Well, thank you very much for attending and giving this nice lecture and have a good discussion with me.
Great.
So I want to thank you for that. And the viewers, I want to thank all the viewers as well. I hope you're watching next time as well. That's in exactly a week at the 3rd of June. And then we will talk more about the EU, ethics in the context of the European Union, and also dive a little bit in the energy transition and how that is connected to ethics. So thank you very much, and have a nice evening.